Welcome to Philadelphia Walks PTSD. My name is Sharon Cole, or Sharon, or Cole, whatever you want to refer to me as. No big deal, in a good way. Don't care. Rat, pig, horse, cow, hippo, rhino, lizard, dinosaur. I've heard it all before. Each word meaning something different to every different group, cult, gang, religious sect, SECT, or whatever, club. So it's interesting that we all have our different definitions for things, and that can all those wires can get crossed, and one person's laughing at another person for using a word, never ends. So anyway, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words shall never hurt me, as they say. And of course, words can hurt, maybe not physically, but mentally. The point being, someone made that up eons ago, that phrase, I guess in hopes of making people stronger or being able to deflect whatever comes their way. But the truth is, I don't want to minimize the fact that words do hurt people. So, and it does have an effect on the brain. And the ultimate goal of the human race, at least from where I stand, is to be part of a more peaceful, accepting world where one can transcend to a gentler. There's a song by Robert Plant or Led Zeppelin, I think it's Kashmir, where the gentler race exists. And you don't even have to play these games. Like, how productive can we be as a people if we didn't have to heal from all the wounds that are inflicted unprovoked? Even so, there are people out there just doing stuff to people, and somehow the air has to be cleared, because why are they doing it? Or do they believe something? Or what's going on? Who's sending messages to people's brains? I do believe that people get messages that are completely false, and people can carry out an entire murder based on false beliefs. So people's brains can be fed stuff. I actually believe that, now that I've learned a whole lot of things. And it's like, whoa, all it takes is 1 second for some terrorist in the sky who has the ability to transmit a message to someone's brain, and that person will go on for many years believing something that may not be totally true, or fewer, in 1 second, get really upset and not know everything. It's more than just knowing the big picture. It's more like an all-out fallacy, an all-out false lie. And to get someone upset who would be incredibly sensitive to a certain issue. So anyway, that all came up all of a sudden. So here we are on day, whatever it is. I guess it's, was it day 110? I think it's day 110 of the 300, one video each day, 365 days. Let me write that in here, day 110 of my one video each day, 365 days, trying to raise money for a life tortured, lost, robbed, stolen. Everything looks okay now. I spent years running around the city like a chicken with her head cut off in a cat and mouse game of a bunch of gremlin idiot assholes who learned how to do something, harass, taunt, be dumb, I guess, on a regular basis. And these would be, and I'm not talking about normal, small, petty crimes. I'm talking people who have gone on to college, people who have degrees, people who have money. They come from family lineages with a lot of money. They might even be part of the police force, the fire department, politics. And their families have learned something that regular people didn't learn. And very sophisticated tactics, street theater, skits, that is whack stuff. Not to mention the first night, which I might as well explain now, everything kicked off the fourth Monday of January 2011. I was made to believe I'd be murdered in my apartment by a series of orchestrated events, and yes, they were orchestrated. I was wondering what the hell was going on. I thought someone was coming in the basement of the row home where I lived. I was in the first half front floor, bottom floor apartment. So there was an apartment behind me. Those people magically and coincidentally were away. And the woman who lived behind me was the daughter of a police officer who used to work in the precinct or office or whatever it is next to Whole Foods on South Street. Her name, Deborah, or something like that. She Her husband was Middle Eastern-ish, and they had gone to the Middle East for an entire month for a special family visit or what have you. So she magically was away and was unavailable to maybe knock on a wall or a door or what have you. But anyway, I thought someone was coming up. I actually did believe it was the last night of my life. I called my sister first. She then convinced me to call the police. I was shaking, trembling, couldn't even hold my phone. I didn't even have a voice. Turns out when you're incredibly stunned and scared, everything shuts down. I couldn't get anything out. It took me a few minutes to call my sister. It was this thing of frozen, hard to explain. If that weren't enough, the games commenced after that, and every person I would turn to who I'd met leading up to this here in Philadelphia, they weren't necessarily supportive. They were like, oh gosh, instead of saying, oh my God, do you want us, you can stay here if you want, it sounds like something really bad happened, you must be scared. You want to come over, have dinner, we'll grab coffee, anything to make you feel better. We can come over, maybe we'll come over, bake cookies or something. These would be helpful things to help someone. It makes me want to cry because they were easily available. It's not like they have to pay for rent a car, or it's not like they have to travel. These are people who lived around the block from me even. And instead of being supportive, they just thought I don't know. Some people thought it was funny. Some were creepy and spooky. Someone who's now a therapist was like, oh, is it the reality of what happened or your perception? This is a major mind effer person who is now fronting as a therapist out there in the world for the LGBT community. Totally fake. And I'm wondering if she's infiltrated in the LGBT community to mess with people's brains too much. I don't even see her as a genuine person who has experience with the FTM community, female to male community, big time. Experience working for Mazzoni in the past. And I'm wondering how fake she is. Or if we're all put to some religious test, you didn't know that this was here on purpose, so that you're supposed to pass a test and you're not supposed to go down the path of the LGBT. And that would upset a lot of people who find healing in the LGBT community. The LGBT community might be more than just some, we prefer, this, that, or the other. It might actually be a place of acceptance for people who have been very harmed by, say, the regular status quo. But anyway, my point today, and it comes back to this person who's a therapist. I wanted to bring up two things that came up, and I'm wondering how they're connected and who's all involved, because it does involve people who are who were in my family who aren't biological, or people who are kind of half biological, partially through an aunt and a marriage and stuff like that. I'll start with beta fish. A long time ago, leading up to 2011, I was hanging out with this person who's a therapist, as I mentioned, and she really wanted to go to Petco or PetSmart or whatever. She desperately wanted to go. And she wanted to go to the one all the way up by kind of closer to Port Richmond, Kensington. There used to be one up there. I don't know if there is any longer. And we get up there, and there were a whole bunch. She needed to get food for her hermit crab, even better, because I was kind of a quiet person, and some people might have mocked or joked that I was hermit-ish. You know how some people are like, oh, I don't feel like going out tonight. It's not a big deal, but she had a hermit crab at her workplace. How many people get hermit crabs for the workplace? And this person now calls herself a therapist. Ouch. So all these beta fish were lined up. This is in my book, 999, Duplicity and Duress, Not Factories in the Making. But all these beta fish were lined up in all these little bowls, looking desperate, sad, and, at the Petco or the PetSmart or one of these pet places up in the Port Richmond and Kensington-ish areas in Philadelphia. I don't know if she has connections to that area. I know her brother used to buy the half-baked pizza up there on Port Richmond near Hinge Cafe. It's kind of in the vicinity of Hinge Cafe. Hey, she's off her hinges, So she almost like a researcher. She said to me, what do you think of these beta fish being in these bowls? She almost might as well have had a clipboard and a questionnaire. So Sharon, what do you think about these beta fish, which are like those fighting fish? They can look like angel fish, but they're really fighting fish and stuff like that. And I felt sorry for the beta fish because they're in a pet store, drab lighting. They're out of their element. I don't know why. I mean, we all have, I guess people have fish tanks, saltwater fish, freshwater fish, goldfish, betta fish. Betta fish don't last long. People get them and they, die off fairly quickly in general. I wouldn't want to do that. I don't know, that's a lot of, I guess they farm these fish indoors. They may not even collect them from wherever they naturally proliferate otherwise. But I was like, oh my God, I feel so sorry for these fish. I wouldn't want, you know, it's just sad that they have to live in these conditions and then wait for some stupid family to buy them. No offense, but you have kids who are all sloppy and the water is all over the place and these fish are like, help me. Sounds like my experience. Bunch of sloppy people buying up a fish. I identified with the betta fish. But anyway, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so badly for these betta fish. It's sad that we live in a society where we have 50 betta fish lined up on a shelf in a pet store. There's something wrong with that, right? So anyway, but it's almost like she was taking little mental notes like a little Nazi, which is interesting because technically she's supposedly Jewish. So I thought that's a little bit even funnier. But anyway, you wouldn't necessarily know this by sight or name. Sometimes it's very, people who are Jewish, sometimes very recognizable by their name and or stereotypically their looks. But anyway, so flash forward to me traveling down to a step family member's home as per request by my dad, kind of like an invitation, kind of. And this, I kind of distanced myself from some people in the step family world just because I needed to sort of assert my independence. And for some reason, we all know this, around some people we thrive and around some people we feel blocked. Whatever the reason is, we have to figure out where we thrive and stay away from where we're blocked, right? So you can't even think around some people and you're like, what's wrong with me? I know I'm a really intelligent person, but in the presence of this person or that person or this group of people, I shut down. So what a life learning will be, stay away. Hopefully people can figure out a way to stay away from those people who shut them down and then thrive in another community or with other friends and keep those visitations to a limit. So anyway, this was after 2011 kicked off. I was kind of in a super desperate mode. And I don't know if someone saw it as an opportunity to reunite everyone. Oh, Sharon's going to be so desperate. We're going to reunite her and put her back into the role of being incredibly submissive and the one who needs taken care of. See how it would put me in a worse victim mode. And I do think there could be one or two other members of my family who wound up in that. Some people need someone to be they need them to be here so they can control them. If you have to live around them or whatever all the time. They need people who are down here, so they need to control them. So I get down there. Along the way, 5 million Dodge Challengers. I had to learn makes and models of cars. So it's like, here's all these menacing, intimidating cars. Dodge Challengers, Avengers, Dodge Chargers. All up and down, driving down. I had to get a zip car, drove all the way down and back. I show up. What's on the table for lunch? And this was kind of during an hour when apparently the wife of the person I'm talking about had to work. So she wasn't around. Just two of their kids. And I'm not sure if their third child had even been born yet. I think they have 3. So it's possible at the time they only had 2 kids. What's on the table? Betta fish in the little bowls. And I sat down to lunch with everyone, my dad, his wife, and, a step sibling and kids. And I remember thinking, and the thing is, I'm basically nice. I actually think kids are in general innocent and they wouldn't know. I kind of feel like people went on living on their lives. So point being, betta fish on the table. And it's sort of like being in the Beetlejuice movie where there's that scene with Winona Ryder at the table and everybody's sort of, a little bit of that energy came in. I've seen this a couple times, the puppeting where, someone's speaking out of my mouth or throat. I actually know that can happen. Um, so we'll leave it at that. But I don't think I'm special. I just know all kinds of crazy stuff happened. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, that is crazy. So we'll just leave it at that. But beta fish on the table. And also discussion about making chocolates. This person's like, yeah, I decided to make chocolates. And the thing was, I had gone through therapy and I kind of talked about different people. And I was like, oh, this person over here, that person, they're kind of like those people who say, hey, little girl, you want some candy? So I needed to unload some stuff in therapy privately, and no one should have heard these comments. But I was like, oh my God, kind of, there was sort of that personality. And here someone is making candy, chocolate candy. All of a sudden, it doesn't seem likely considering this person's occupation or personality. I decided to make a whole bunch of chocolate. So see how that plays into, that's weird because it's almost a mockery of me having to unload a lot of serious stuff from growing up in order to move on and be unblocked. And I did this on my own without bothering anyone else in private, in a private therapy session. And most people didn't even know I was there from my family or upbringing. They wouldn't have even known. So anyway, I did this as an adult. So anyway, that's the beta fish example. The next example has to do with Florida, where there's a cousin there who's married and another cousin in the Georgia area. And these would be the sons of my aunt who was living with my mom. And I wound up, after so many years of being tortured here in Philadelphia, in 2018, I wound up living with my mom and aunt in hopes of sort of like trying to figure out if I could go somewhere else. Anyway, hard to explain. I was in a very desperate situation again, like dog walks dwindled, all kinds of things changed. And it's like, I started to worry and get, all that stuff. So anyway, get down there, wound up taking on 8 different jobs, being paid by 8 different people. So I kind of patched as much work as possible, substitute teaching. I even was willing to work at Starbucks just to keep working, just to have money coming in. I was like, how can I save money, or what can I? And also I wanted to contribute a little to being there. I didn't want to, they invited me there. I didn't want to feel like a total leech. But anyway, I worked at Santa Fe College as a community, at Santa Fe Community College as a non-credit writing instructor, if you will. I worked for Shipt food delivery. I worked as a yoga instructor, and I even considered I went to trucking school and actually got paid for a portion of it. And there's probably 1 or 2, and also a couple people did ask me to take care of their dogs in the neighborhood where my mom and aunt lived. And a friend, someone who kind of met me, invited me up to his house to help clean and he bought a starter home, and he's like, you know what? If you want to come up and help, I'll actually pay you to sort of help me kind of straighten up this place so that he could sell it later and then get another home. So all these things I was willing to do in addition to applying to a million things in hopes of getting maybe a job at the university there and so forth and so on. Well, the pandemic comes around. My mom passes away, not because of coronavirus, but because of other causes. Then my dad passes away because of coronavirus. That was so July, then December. Then my aunt passes away. My dad lived somewhere else, farther south in Florida. My aunt passes away after getting her vaccinations. And this was technically something else, but it all had to do with breathing. Breathing was a huge issue. She was asthmatic and then wound up with COPD and so forth and so on. And this cascaded. She had 2 hospital visits. So she had one just after my dad passed away over the Christmas holiday. And then later she would go, and that would be when she would pass away. So when she passed away, I felt kind of tricked by my cousins because I communicated with them like an adult. And I said, I'm sorry I'm here in this house. I don't even want to be here, but because of circumstances beyond my control, I'm kind of stuck here. I wound up stuck here, but I'm hoping to figure out where to go. And they kept saying, don't worry. One of them kept saying, don't worry, in due time, in due time. Certain type of voice that can seem cute if you're trying to court like a high school kid, if we're dating. In due time. She's my favorite aunt. In due time. So, and then 24 to 48 hours later, the same cousin calls up and says, well, Aunt Jane passed away and we need you out in 3 weeks. 4 would be okay, but 3 weeks would be optimal. So I was scared. Luckily, I had money saved up from having worked for Shipped, but I was scared out of my wits again. And these people didn't care. One of the cousins came in with his son, and they quickly like trashed everything to get rid of everything. They just wanted to clean out the house very quickly. I had already kind of went through things in my mom's room. Most of my mom's belongings were in a room of the house. So I had already done all that just because it was sort of cathartic and everything. And um, she had incontinence and everything. So um, I got rid of the bed and all that stuff and sort of fixed up the room, put the futon in there, and then I stayed in her room, sleeping on sort of a couch futon similar to what I have here today. But they came in, it was very intimidating and scary, and I was trying to figure out where to go and how was the best way to spend my money in the bank account. I was very worried about my future. They didn't seem to care about that. They came in, then one of the cousins is talking to all the neighbors, all wheeling and dealing, wheeling and dealing, wheeling and dealing, wheel deal. And I'm like, whoa, this is too much. They, cleaned house per se and left. The other cousin and his wife come in. They don't really do all the physical work, but his wife lined up a whole bunch of like figurines that my aunt had and just sort of lined them up like in military fashion, or I don't know, in the bedroom. I'm like, what are they doing in there? Because they're not like helping to get rid of things. They're doing something weird and bizarre. I don't know what to say. I don't know what happened to people. And these people somewhere they have money because they have homes, they have mortgages that they're either already paid off or mostly paid off. They get to live nicely and have assets and stuff like that. And in the end, they're like, well, you don't mind, do you? We got to do this, we got to do that. And, do you mind? You don't mind? Because in the end, they left all this stuff, but you can't take the trash to the curb until it's trash day. And in Florida, you have to have special trash bags for certain types of trash. And those bags aren't free. You have to purchase those bags at either a Home Depot. A couple neighbors like offered one or two, but there were a whole bunch of things. I had to drag all that out to the curb for them. They think they did me a favor. They did not. I actually put more energy and actually paid a little to stay there. I contributed here and there. They never did. You don't mind, do you? You don't mind doing our work for us, do you? You don't mind, do you? You don't mind, do you? You don't mind, do you? That's basically them. These people got to sell a corner lot trailer-ish. It's like slightly up from a trailer. It still has skirting on the bottom, so it would be considered a trailer. But those people got to put that on the market and sell it and take all the winnings. But they never once put an ounce of effort into that home. While I was there, I wanted to contribute in any way that I could. I raked up all the pine needle, cleaned up the entire lot because it was a total wreck. They had about 3 years of pine needles all stacked up. I put all that in trash bags while I was there. All kinds of stuff I did to help maintain the house. I paid money to my aunt after my mom passed away. It wasn't the same amount that my mom paid. My mom paid quite a bit to stay in that little tiny room. And I'm wondering who helped who more. Because my aunt did have homes because of husbands that she was with. My mom never wound up remarrying. No one was going to be good enough. And that is true. No one was good enough for her. Meaning she was better than everyone she met. My mom was actually a very high-class person with not as much education. I'm glad she never settled for pieces of shit showing up at Parents Without Partners. So a lot of people stole from my mom and also my dad and the daughters of that original marriage. So I put a lot of effort into that home. I even paid my aunt when my mom left because I felt badly that it's like, oh, my mom used to pay this woman all this money for the dish, all kinds of stuff. Because my mom felt so desperate and I'm wondering how she wound up in Florida to begin with. And it might have been because she was pulled down there for various reasons. And we have a bunch of spoiled boys who are half or quarter Jewish, I guess. And I don't mean to bring that up. It just seems to be a theme that kept coming up. I actually went to Hebrew school, took a Hebrew class because I was interested and wanted to learn more, but I'm wondering why this theme was thrown in there. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu is some of the stuff I remember. I have a cousin who was actually bar mitzvahed in Israel. It's because of their grandmother who was Jewish. That would be the only member who was full on 100% Jewish, I believe, other than her, whoever her parents were. These people got to be raised in West Palm Beach, Florida. And they would quick to, it's not West Palm Beach, it's not West Palm Beach, it's North Palm, it's just Palm Beach. These people would throw women and children off of a cruise ship first. These people are babies. You don't mind, do you, that I might report people for what happened? These people owe me a lot of money, and they know it. Okay, have a nice day. I'll have to get those special Florida trash bags and throw them at your house. I am disturbed big time by the behavior I've witnessed. And I want to know why one person had betta fish on his table and talked about making chocolate candies and made sure his wife wasn't there. And I would like to know why a bunch of babies acted like severe gang stalkers of the worst kind. There are gang stalkers who could sneak into people's homes when you're not there. And these people look professional. Because in that and I moved out in 3 weeks and 2 days. It was exactly 3 weeks. In that 3-week time, I would come back, and the idea was they would let me know if they were going to stop into the house, if they were doing something to the house. But there was a time when I returned to the house while in Gainesville, Florida, and I knew someone had been in there. Things had been rearranged. I was creeped out and freaked out. And I called, or I texted one of the cousins. I was like, was somebody in the house? I'm just checking because people scare me all the time. It's a matter of course. It's a matter of gang stalking. I talked about it on my video yesterday. When did these scare tactics? People set people up to be scared all the time. And no, it's not a way to keep people alive and thriving. I can live and thrive while not being scared by actually being supported and having cool people in my life to go to dinner with, to do that with, whatever. These people are full-on gang stalkers. I am shocked because we all live with a lie and a myth. We grow up and, everybody believes everybody's good. Oh, so-and-so is the gentle one that my mom would assume, and people are supposed to be family or whatever. But my mom would be like, oh, so-and-so is the gentle one, and so-and-so is this, that, and all the women towed the line for these big baby men. And no offense to men who are basically good people. This is very specific to my case. I cannot believe what I witnessed. And I want to know how long they would survive being tortured like I was. About 2 days, tops, 1 day, they'd be shooting up a nation. They'd be out there shooting up University of Florida campus if they got what I got. Trust me on that one.